Hi, John with eTrailer. Today we have a 2016 Winnebago Vista LX, and we're going to be taking a look at and installing SumoSprings Maxim rear helper springs on the rear axle here. Now, in order for us to get a closer look at the construction and how they mount up to the Winnebago, let's go ahead and pull it in the shop so we can get a close look. Now with the wheels removed, we can kind of take a closer look at the SumoSprings and how they mount up on this F53 chassis. So basically, this is the rear axle here. The front of our RV is that way. So these sit just forward of the leaf spring pack at the axle here. Now the blue ones right here, these are rated at 3,000 pounds at 50% compression. Basically, these are going to be a good fit for your F53 chassis if you have a gross vehicle weight rating of 16 to 18,000 pounds. These are a microcell urethane is what they're made out of. There's no maintenance on these. They work in all temperatures. So unlike airbags, you're not going to have to worry about air leaks or running air lines or anything like that maintenance-wise. These are going to help with leveling your ride. They're going to help with sway. And these are going to come with everything that you need to install a pair of these on the rear drive axle. They do bolt up. You will be drilling into the frame, but we'll get into that later and you can check that out. Right now, let's take these out on our test course and you can see what they actually do in action on bumps. Now we're here at a test course, and basically all this is going to be a bunch of uneven bumps left and right. So for me, this is nice to see the SumoSprings in action, but it's kind of hard to convey how these really work with your RV. This is something that you're just going to feel it more than just see it. I mean, I like to see the contraction of the springs and everything, but where these are really going to shine is when you're out on the highway. And if you have crosswinds, uneven roads at bridge expansions, or if they're doing construction and you have to cross over and everything is uneven, this is where these really start to make a big difference in your RV experience. These are a progressive dampening, so they're going to be soft at first, but the more your RV is going to lean, or the harder the bumps are, this is where these start to really push back and try to keep you level and reduce the sway. And one thing I would say is that I would recommend installing on the rear and also the front to make the biggest impact in your driving experience. They really work well together, front to back, and it's going to control it, especially your sway from side to side, either when you're passing semis or if you're up on like Interstate 80 when you got some really bad crosswinds. Well, now that we've seen them in action on our chassis here, let's go ahead and pull it in the shop. We'll show you how to install them. Now, before we begin, this is a pretty large job. We're going to have to find a way to get your RV up into the air so that the axles can hang. This job is a lot easier if you can take your tires off, and that way you're able to access and drill into the frame. So with that being said, we are going to start. We're going to have some wheel simulators that we need to take off. If you look inside at the individual lug nuts here, you're going to have two that look a little bit different, and they're going to be 180 degrees apart from each other. Those are the ones that are holding this wheel cover on. We're using an inch and an eighth socket. We're just going to thread these off so we can get to the lug nuts that are actually holding the wheel on. So that's what the inside of these look like. And this one started coming off on me. A lot of times they'll kind of be stuck on and you may have to just kind of pry them off. This one's ready to come off. Now underneath the cover, we're going to have the actual lug nuts that are holding the wheel on. These are 13/16. This is a 19.5-inch wheel. Yours may be different. You may have the 22.5s on there, so you may have a different size. Okay, now in your kit, you're going to get the SumoSprings, and you're going to get the lower brackets and the upper brackets. These are not side specific, so we just need to put them together and get them on. The way that we're going to mount these is going to be very similar from the driver's side to the passenger side. So just keep that in mind here. So we'll take the top bracket and just line up the mounting holes, and then in your kit you're going to get a serrated locking 3/4 inch bolt. These are going to get snugged up, and then as far as the bottom goes, I'm going to use the same to lock that in there as well. You can either snug these up now, which is what I recommend. It's a little bit easier than doing it on the chassis, but it's not impossible. There's no torque specs for this, so just snug them up as best as you can. Now we're in the wheel well here. We're on the passenger side, so the rear of the vehicle is this way, the front is this way, just so you know what's going on here. And so we take our SumoSpring. This is going to get mounted on top of the spring. You've got the 2 U-bolts here, and as you can see, we're going to have some things in the way. We've got this big harness that's in the way, and the other thing that I noticed as well is that we're going to have a sway link. The rear sway link is here. Now, one thing we can do temporarily is we'll disconnect this, and I've just got a, looks like a Phillips bolt that's holding this, so I'm going to unbolt this and kind of swing these out of the way, and then we can take a closer look and see if our sway link is going to be in the way. So I just wired this harness temporarily out of the way so we can work right here. And I'm going to put the spring assembly back up in here. And I'll show you real quick. This notch is going to ride on top of your leaf spring. So set that into position, and then this key is going to grab the front of the U-bolt here. So it's going to be like this. It's going to sit pretty much in this position here. Now, the sway link here won't be in our way. We should be good. You definitely want to check the other side of the frame, and in this case we have another electrical harness running back here, so we want to be careful when we drill into this. But we have the position that the spring is going to be in. The next step here is going to be measuring from the top of the frame down to 6 inches. And 6 inches we want at the center of the lower bolt hole on each side. So what I've done is I marked 6 inches down and I drew a line straight across. And the next thing we're going to do is mount the SumoSpring to the actual leaf spring. And then when we raise the axle into position, it will scoot the SumoSpring up. We'll know when we're at the right position that we need to be on both sides by raising the axle up. So to bolt our SumoSpring in your kit, you're going to get 2 5-inch carriage bolts, some lock washers, and then this bottom plate. Carriage bolts will go right in to the SumoSpring on each side. Definitely want to make sure you watch your parking brake cable down here. Make sure you don't get that tangled up. And this bottom plate will just sit against the spring, bolted up. And you're going to find a torque spec for these bottom plates in the instruction manual. So we're just showing you the bottom side. I ended up cutting these carriage bolts because they were going to be interacting with our parking brake cable here. So we have plenty of length on these. I'm going to get these snugged up, and there are torque specs for these in the installation manual. So I took a floor jack and I lifted the axle up, and we made a mark 6 inches down from the top on both sides of this bracket here, and you can see that we're level on both sides. So I'm going to drill Remember to check the other side of the frame. Make sure you're not going to drill into anything that you don't want to. But I'm going to drill with a 3/8 inch drill bit, and we're going to set the two bottom bolts, the one on the left and the one on the right. So we have our one hole drilled. In your kit, you're going to have 1.5 inch bolts and the same locking flange nuts. So we're just going to set the left side here. And I'm going to keep it loose on the back side, but this will keep the left one in position over here. And I'm going to drill out the right side. Okay, so we have the bolt installed on the bottom on each side of this bracket here. I'm going to snug these up and torque them to the specs in our installation manual. Now you're going to have 2 more holes up here, but you're only going to drill 1 more per side. So you're going to have 2 bolts in each side of this bracket. Now they give you 2 holes just in case you're going to run into something on the back side, you know, like a manufacturer bolt or something like that. If you don't have any problems and both of these are open, then use the top one on both sides. Okay, so I have all of the hardware attached here and torqued to the specs that are in our installation manual. It's just kind of tightened here to kind of show you what was going on. But I reattached the wiring harness up here and have it secured. We don't want anything to be rubbing on this urethane when it's going down the road. So we're clear on all the sides. So essentially we're done here. Basically what you would want to do now is just repeat this same process on the other side, get the other side installed, and then we can reinstall the tires. Now once you get everything snugged up on both sides and your camper back down on the ground, that'll complete your installation of SumoSprings custom helper springs on your 2016 Winnebago Vista LX.